Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews last year was the number 1 tight end per game in non, number 3 in half, and number 5 per game in full PPR. And that was one game where he played 11% of the snaps. So, Dave, Jamie says Mark Andrews is bust proof. Give me the bust case for him.
Well, let's start with Derrick Henry. Going to Baltimore, I think he's going to change how, well, I don't know if it's necessarily change how the Ravens want to run their offense, but I certainly don't think Henry going to Baltimore is an indicator that they want to throw more. So this is still going to be a team that's run first. Obviously, the quarterback will continue to run. But who's going to be the number 1 target getter? Is it going to be Andrews? Is it going to be Zay Flowers? Could it be close between those two? Coaches continue to talk up Rashad Bateman. Could he take work away? Could it be more spread in that offense that takes that volume away that we've come to know and love from Mark Andrews? And then once they get inside the 5, I think it's going to be Derrick Henry as option number 1, 2, and 3 to score touchdowns. Maybe once in a while a play action throw to Mark Andrews that could help him out. I know that he's been good for, at least 11.6 PPR points per game each of the last 5 years, but he's been under 13 and a half or less each of the last 2. Injuries have played a role. He is 29 years old. Maybe this isn't the guy who once was taken as the number 2 tight end. I know we're not taking him as the number 2 tight end, but maybe he finishes as like tight end 4 or 5 this year between injuries, lower target volume in Baltimore, fewer touchdown opportunities.
That's not much of a bust case, Dave. You got to sell me a little bit more than that. I'll try, because tight end 4 or 5, I mean, that wouldn't be so bad for Andrews, but he's had 1 year in his career where he has averaged more than 60 yards per game, even if you remove like partial games where he gets injured. He's 1 year in his career where he's averaged more than 60 yards per game. 60 yards per game times 17 is 1,020 yards. So 1 year where he's been like 1,000-yard pace or more than that in 17 games. And then
you make it sound like getting 1,000 yards is bad. It's difficult.
It's hard to make a bust case for these guys.
It's 1,000 yards for no.
There
okay,
was one guy to do it last year.
I don't know if he's getting 1,000 yards.
But I'm talking about 17-game pace. I'm not talking about like guys miss time all the time. But we're also talking about Mark Andrews had his lowest target per route run rate since his rookie season. He in 6 of 9 healthy games, he had 4 to 6 targets. This is a legitimate concern for me because Zay Flowers didn't do much when Andrews was healthy. If Zay Flowers becomes the legitimate 1 guy, the 1A guy in that offense, they keep talking about Rashad Bateman. Even if Rashad Bateman is just like a decent number 3 wide receiver for them, I think we do have a target problem here for Mark Andrews. And you throw in Derrick Henry at the goal line. I do see some bust potential here for Mark Andrews because the targets were actually pretty low for him. I think it's reasonable to look at him and say he may not get 100 targets in 17 games.
He just feels safe to me.
That's nice.
Because he's just consistently done it.
Yeah.
He has.
Yeah.
But it comes to an end for everyone, like Kittle. I really think Kittle would have been a huge bust last year if Debo hadn't gotten hurt. That wouldn't have been the case, obviously, for Andrews. Andrews having a great year, but Flowers didn't do anything until Andrews got hurt. I'm saying that maybe this year Flowers becomes like real target competition for Andrews. And if Flowers becomes the best player in this offense, then
he definitely can. I mean, you're hearing a lot about just the rapport between those two guys. And look, it's the second year in Todd Monken's offense. So, it's last year was install and learning it, or trying to perfect it as they go. Now it should be to the point where they're perfecting it, with another off season and second year in the system. And so, Andrews missing the latter half of the season and, the beginning of the playoffs, that may have been because Lamar Jackson was finally clicking at that time, which is why Zay Flowers took off at that time. Now, clearly, I think Zay Flowers took off because Andrews not being there. That definitely helped. I don't necessarily want to buy into Rashad Bateman all of a sudden becoming a thing. He's getting a lot of hype, understandably so. Beckham's gone, and he's going to be a starter and or more of a full-time starter, and first round talent, and Harbaugh talking him up. It all makes sense, but if you're talking about his production coming at the expense of Andrews and by extension Zay Flowers, I don't buy it. So I think Andrews is still locked into his role. I think he's still going to be, if not the alpha in the passing game, certainly the 1B. Behind Zay Flowers, if Flowers does take that next step and ascends beyond him. The run game, it's like we're sitting here and expecting Derrick Henry to be an absolute monster. He can be. Gus Edwards still scored 13 touchdowns last year, So 3, 4, 5 more, I think that's realistic for Henry if he stays healthy. But I think that also comes with the extension of it just being a better offense in general, because the running game should be better because Henry's better than Gus Edwards.
I'm not going to play devil's advocate here. Targets per game for Mark Andrews was at a 5-year low last year, 6.1. Can you still be a quality?
Is that taking out the game he got hurt too?
No, that's every game he played. If we want to take out the game he got hurt, I can
take out the game he got hurt. What's 6.5? Let's just say that's 100. 6.5 times 17 is 111 targets. But the case I was making was that if Zay Flowers emerges, forget about Bateman. If Zay Flowers emerges, I think you could be looking at about 100 targets.